UK soon to be free from COVID clause while EU still suffered restrictions rules on a daily basis. Britain is leading the way across the Northern Hemisphere with the UK closer than the EU and US to exiting the pandemic, an expert has said. Boris Johnson's COVID response appears to have been vindicated with the country poised to return to normal in a matter of just weeks. Britain's success is despite the Prime Minister facing intense criticism from his political opponents at home and on the international stage for his handling of the virus. He has been accused of failing to lock down quickly enough in the early stages of the pandemic, relaxing restrictions on social distancing and face coverings too early, and was even denounced by some for deploying lateral flow tests to help mass testing across the country. Professor David Heymann, from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, LSHTM, suggested in a Chatham House online briefing that the UK was seeing the disease move from pandemic to endemic. He said, in general, now, the countries that we know best in the Northern Hemisphere have varying stages of the pandemic. And probably, in the UK, it's the closest to any country of being out of the pandemic if it isn't already out of the pandemic and having the disease as endemic as the other 4 coronaviruses. The academic said a mixture of natural immunity and vaccines meant the vast majority had antibodies to defend against coronavirus. Over 90% of Britons aged 12 or over have had at least one COVID jab, while almost 36 million adults have had all 3 doses necessary to give them optimal protection. Professor Heymann said population immunity was already high, adding, that means immunity against serious illness and death after infection if one is vaccinated, or after reinfection if one has had illness before, and that population immunity seems to be keeping the virus and its variants at bay, not causing serious illness or death in countries where population immunity is high. I looked at the ONS, Office for National Statistics, most recent report on population immunity, and they estimated about 95% of the population in England and a little less than in other parts of the United Kingdom do have antibody to infection either from vaccination or from natural infection. And that antibody, as I said, is keeping the virus at bay. And it's now functioning more like an endemic coronavirus than one that is a pandemic. While the high transmissibility to the Omicron variant currently spreading across the world has led to a huge surge in infections, with more than 100,000 new cases being registered every day, the number of people with serious illness continues to decrease. There are 820 people in ventilation beds according to official figures, the lowest number in months. Meanwhile, 1,660 people are registered to have died with the virus over the past week, far lower than in January 2021 before most of the population had protection for vaccines. If you look in the intensive care units, you'll see that unfortunately the majority of those people are not vaccinated, Professor Heymann added. Tipping the UK to be able to remove virtually all COVID rules in the near future, he said Britain was learning to live with the virus and take personal responsibility rather than impose draconian laws. He said, some are already saying that it is endemic in the United Kingdom, that the United Kingdom has succeeded in transferring risk assessment from the government, which was assessing the risk and passing down to people who are doing their own risk assessments either by doing self-testing when they go visit elderly people or some other means of trying to prevent transmission to others. While Mr. Johnson has managed to see out the recent Omicron wave while adding minimal extra restrictions, countries across the EU have been far more authoritarian in their approach. In Spain, Greece, and Italy, face masks must be worn even when outside. France is drafting a new law that would require proof of a jab to visit a range of public venues including bars and restaurants. Meanwhile, Austria has made injections mandatory with plain-clothed police officers carrying out random checks for vaccination status. Mr. Johnson's comparatively limited Plan B restrictions imposed last month are due to expire in 2 weeks' time.